afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being with us here at noon. I'm Amy Huckert for All Day Live. We have a lot of live events going on today. We want to take you to some developing news here in just the last few minutes, too. We're going to be taking you to a press conference where the governor, the attorney general, some other state leaders are going to talk about the immigration crackdown here and children, how it's impacting children and families. All of that coming up. We'll take that live when it happens. Also, another live update at about 12:30, so in about 30 minutes. This is on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. Been seeing some headlines today that there may be some new information that they're going to be sharing, so we'll take you there as well if we can make that happen. And then just moments ago, literally just a few minutes ago, a vote that will avert a government shutdown, partial anyways. Final vote happening any minute now. We're going to keep an eye on what's happening on Capitol Hill as well. So we have a lot to cover there. And then speaking of politics, the political season, the election season officially kicks off tonight. Full caucuses. These are a series of meetings. It doesn't sound very exciting, but a lot can happen at these meetings. So political analyst Blois Olson is going to join me here in about 15 minutes. We're going to talk about the caucus itself, but more importantly, where do things stand now? What do the landscapes look like for Republicans and Democrats amid Operation Metro Surge? Also, a little bit later, we're going to talk with the lead detective who has been investigating this case. It was a 74-year-old man found shot outside of Hastings 1 year ago this week, someone who was known in the community, and we're going to take another look at some of the evidence there. They are hoping that they can jog some memories and find some answers. So stick with us. We've got a lot going on here in the next couple of hours. All right, let's start out here with this. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is among those who are appearing before a federal grand jury today. The Department of Justice is investigating whether state and local leaders obstructed federal agents from conducting immigration enforcement here in Minnesota. Attorney General Pam Bondi had issued some subpoenas to the offices of 6 elected officials, including the governor, attorney general, mayors of both Minneapolis and St. Paul. And it sounds like the federal government gave the Minneapolis mayor's office about 2 weeks to put together some things that they wanted to see here. One, a list of records relating to a year's worth of policies and directives on federal immigration enforcement. Also, any records relating to compliance or lack of compliance with immigration detainers. And then any related emails, texts, voice messages, and any other directives to identify or do surveillance on agents. The mayor's office also responding just today. We have a statement from them saying, quote, "We have done nothing wrong and have nothing to hide, but when the federal government weaponizes the criminal justice system against political opponents, it's important to stand up and fight back. We're working with our legal team to take appropriate action under the law." So we'll keep an eye on that and court hearing, and we'll see if we can bring you any more updated information here as the afternoon goes on. All right, speaking of courts, another court hearing, this also in federal court. We are watching because a man charged with assaulting Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has a detention hearing and also a preliminary examination today. Anthony Kamirchek is charged with forcibly assaulting and interfering. You may remember seeing this video, the Department of Justice saying that he sprayed a syringe of diluted apple cider vinegar at Representative Omar while she was speaking. It was at a town hall last week in Minneapolis. Now, if he's convicted, he could face 1 to 8 years with this federal case, but he's also charged at the state level with a felony count of terroristic threats and also 5th-degree assault. So we'll keep an eye on that for you as well. All right. This morning, Representative Omar, actually speaking of her, she was part of a group of Democrats calling for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to be fired or face impeachment. So here is a part of what the group had to say this morning.
I represent Minneapolis, which is currently under occupation. We do not exaggerate when we say we have schools where 2/3 of the students are afraid to go to school. We do not exaggerate when we say we have people who are afraid to go to the hospital because our hospitals have occupying paramilitary forces. We do not exaggerate when we say our restaurants are shutting down because there are not enough people to drive the employees to work and from work. We do not exaggerate when I say we have people who are housing other people because they are afraid to go home. And that is all happening in an American city. We have two neighbors, two of my constituents, who were shot by federal agents as cameras recorded. And their president maligned their name and told us not to believe our eyes. When we say it is time for Kristi Noem to go, we mean it now.
Let's go. Let's go.
When we say there needs to be accountability for the architect of the terror we are facing in Minneapolis and so many other cities, which is Stephen Miller, we mean we need accountability for him now.
Let's go.
So thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining the call to get ICE out of our cities, for us to dismantle this department that is not just rogue, but unlawful. And yes, obviously, if Kristi Noem does not resign and the president doesn't fire her, Democrats are ready and willing to impeach her.
All right, we are also watching this. So I alluded to this right off the top, that just a few moments ago, the House, a vote in the House to end the partial government shutdown went through. So a final vote expected here anytime. Ryan was just telling me the shot just went down. We had a shot there, but it just went down. So they may be in some sort of a recess right now, or they don't have that live look for us. But we do know that the Republican-led House advanced this government funding package to end the partial government shutdown. And this would then set up debate ahead of a final vote for passage, which is expected to happen. It was my understanding it was 1 o'clock, which I think would have been noon our time. I'm just kind of guessing there. But this is a President Trump-backed funding deal that passed the Senate last week, and it will now fund, if it passes through officially, fund several departments through the end of this fiscal year. But what it did was separate out the portion of the measure that would fund Department of Homeland Security. They wanted to talk a little bit more about what that would look like. And so they funded DHS for 2 weeks. That was the compromise, and then moved ahead just so they could keep the rest of the government moving and going. So we will continue to, I know Ryan's watching it, he's keeping an eye on it, and we'll continue to bring you much more as that story starts to develop and we get some more details there as well. All right. Another thing that we are watching today, again, a lot of live events, we are expecting to hear from state leaders and some others, and specifically, they're talking about immigration enforcement here in the Twin Cities and how it pertains to children, how this has involved children. A lot of people have been watching the case of 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father. They were able to return home to Minnesota on Sunday from an ICE facility in Texas after a judge ruled that the incorrect warrant was not used for them. So our Corin Hoggard's joining me now with kind of a preview of what we can expect today. Corin, who are we going to hear from? What do we expect to hear?
Amy, it's, the governor, Attorney General Keith Ellison. It is some school leaders, including from Fridley and from Columbia Heights, which is Liam Ramos's district there. Do not know exactly what they're going to be talking about, but I did a little bit of research to try to prepare. The Deportation Data Project has a lot of numbers about kids being detained. They have data from 2023 till October of 2025, so before the surge came to Minneapolis and Minnesota. But at that point, ICE was holding about 170 children on average in its detention centers during President Trump's time in office here, from January 2025 until October 2025, when their numbers ended. That's about 6 times as many as were kept under Biden. Also, this Deportation Data Project said that they booked at least 3,800 children into detention, and at least 1,100 of them were held longer than 20 days, which is a court-ordered limit for how long they can detain children. We know, talking to school leaders around Minnesota that school absences are pretty high. A lot of districts have gone to the option of studying from home. We know Rochester had more than 500 folks more absences than they did the previous January. We know St. Paul schools have had more than half of their Spanish-speaking students not attending schools. We know a lot of them have started to take these remote learning options. And so that is essentially what I'm imagining we're going to hear about from them.
All right, Corin, thank you. I also just really quickly, briefly, yesterday, I know you didn't do this, Rob had a chance to do a story where he spoke with Representative Kelly Morrison, who went inside the Whipple building. And so we're kind of, getting more information about conditions and things like that, as it not pertains maybe specifically to children, but just in general, we're starting to maybe get eyes on some things that we haven't before. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say.
That was actually me who interviewed Representative Morrison yesterday.
Okay, just after a while, Corin, it's just a lot of stories just kind of crisscross a little bit. I apologize, that was you.
We're practically the same person, Rob and I.
But that it was. I thought it was an interesting story yesterday to be able to kind of get these glimpses into places that we haven't been able to see. And we know that there was a lawmaker from Texas who went to the facility where Liam and his father were being held as well. So we have an article on Fox9.com if you want to read about that. But thank you, Corin. Appreciate it very much. All right, we'll continue to cover some more events here for you later this afternoon. We're going to bring this to you live. We'll stream it for you. The brothers and the attorney representing the family of Renee Good are expected to speak at a public forum on Capitol Hill. So this will be in Washington, D.C. It's focused on federal immigration enforcement agents' use of force during these immigration raids. We know that Renee Good was killed when an Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent shot into her vehicle. That was January 7th. This is a forum that is organized by Democratic lawmakers. Connecticut's Senator Richard Blumenthal, California Representative Robert Garcia are behind this. And looking at that docket, we didn't see any DHS officials or anyone that expected to appear sort of that was representing the Republican side of things. The forum is expected to start around 2 o'clock. And again, we are planning to stream that for you live on Fox9.com and also on Fox Local, so you can find it there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We got a lot more headlines to get to. Plus, Blois Olson is going to join us here in a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk about caucuses, yes, and how they start tonight, but also just the political landscape right now here in Minnesota. So stay with us. All Day Live continues.
It was a cold morning this morning. Here around the Twin Cities, both sides of zero. We get down to 3 officially in the metro, but we dabbled with a light chill at times below zero. But you go to anywhere in the southern half of the state, chances are you did see a minus sign for a good chunk of the viewing area. But we had teens and even 20s below zero across the northern third of Minnesota for air temperature. Luckily, most folks did not experience a breeze, but it led to a very bright day today as we have sharp shadows as we look across parts of Central Park and Maple Grove. Plenty of blue sky up above, but that cloud cover continues to kind of build as we slide through the afternoon. A little band of some cloud cover thickens, especially in western Minnesota this afternoon. A little veil of some cloud cover into the 3 and the 4 and the 5 o'clock hour. The sun doesn't go down until 5:23. Our day is getting awfully close to 10 hours. We get there toward the end of the week this week. By tonight will be mostly cloudy sky. Overnight tonight we'll see some pocket flurries develop into the overnight hours as we go on into the overnight and into early tomorrow morning, especially west and northwest of town. That's part of the warmer air surging our way. That will allow us to hang out with some extra cloud cover for tomorrow. Partly sunny to mostly cloudy sky, but highs up in the 20s, very seasonable, mid-20s for your day on Wednesday. Then a warm front rolls on by. It'll spark some very light snow, especially northeast of town, into late Wednesday night as we go on through the middle of the night, but that escorts in some warmer air, and we're talking about highs in the upper 30s in the Twin Cities, some lower 40s just south of town possible for our thaw day on Thursday. Ooh, the THs reign supreme on our Thursday. We put it together on a forecast, then here's what shakes out. Cool sunshine for today, quiet as those late afternoon and evening clouds continue to kind of lower and thicken as we go on in from a veil to a mostly cloudy overnight. A high today around 19. Now that's just 3 degrees lower than yesterday, but without much of a breeze, it ends up kind of roughly the same feel. And yesterday wasn't too bad. 9 overnight tonight, but teens to the west with thicker cloud cover through the night and a few flurries across western or northwestern Minnesota. And then back to a seasonable afternoon on Wednesday. Mostly cloudy to partly sunny sky. Relatively quiet, though. High around 26 into the day on Wednesday afternoon, which is perfectly average for this time of year. As we go into the day on Thursday, we build partly sunny conditions, highs in the upper 30s in the Twin Cities. Some 40s possible across southern Minnesota as a whole. Beautiful afternoon with plenty of melting and thawing going on. Barely refreezing as we head on into Friday morning, and then hanging out in the low to mid 30s through about lunchtime or so. And then temperatures fall quite quickly Friday afternoon into the 20s as we go on into your evening plans as the kids come home from school or dinner time, going out for Friday night fun. It'll be colder, falling quickly into Friday night. Not blustery, just air mass changes as we go on into Friday night. Saturday, mid to upper 20s again with patchy sunshine, so seasonable temperatures. And then back to a thaw again on Sunday, a high of 33, and then committing to it. Not just on Monday, but if I had an 8 or a 9-day forecast, we'd still be bouncing around those mid to upper 30s for afternoon highs in through at least the middle days of next week.
And welcome back to All Day Live. It's 12:18 here on a Tuesday, and we're so glad you're with us today. February 3rd already, just clicking along. The 2026 election season officially begins today in Minnesota, and the first step here is what's called precinct caucusing. This is a series of meetings where each party does things like choose delegates, talk about who they might endorse for these elections, maybe make some changes to their party's platforms. Joining me now, political analyst Blois Olson, Fluence Media. Thanks so much for joining us, Blois.
Happy to be here, Am.
All right, so caucusing doesn't get a lot of attention. Not super exciting. How important is it in the grand scheme of everything?
You know, it's really important for the candidates who are seeking their party's endorsement, because it's those candidates who are really dependent on those delegates that go through the grassroots process to show their support. On the Republican side, they have had a history of their endorsed candidate winning their primary. On the Democratic side, it's been the opposite. Their endorsed candidate hasn't won the primary. But that doesn't mean that the core activists from each party won't show up. There's a lot of energy for different reasons on both sides of the aisle today.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go next, because in addition to talking, we don't want to talk too many logistics about caucusing, because it really, I did learn this though today, Blois, that you can participate starting at age 16. I did not know that.
Yeah, yep.
So you could
Here's a little fun fact for you.
Let's do it, yeah.
My first caucus, age 14 because I got extra credits in civics.
Look at you.
To go to my caucus.
And look at you now.
Look at what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't send your 14-year-old to caucus.
Right. I think
they'll turn out to be a Fox 9 political analyst.
That's right. So I do want to talk about, though, what I think the bigger picture here, which is what I think I hear a lot of people talking about, which is the party's identities right now. Can we start with Republicans? How would you characterize the Republican Party in Minnesota in this environment right now?
So first and foremost, they are energized because there's a governor's race. They feel strongly that they really want to win that governor's race. And so I think that is the core activist. But I also think that they know that there's a challenge with their party in Minnesota during these times. If you just flash back to, less than a month ago, when Governor Walz dropped out, Republicans felt like there was a chance. And Amy Klobuchar jumps in. We see some early poll numbers. She's dominant. And then you look at the biggest story in the country, if not the world, which is ICE's presence in Minnesota right now, and how that has energized Democrats and turned off independents strongly by all the data we see, so that Republicans are going to have a headwind when they had a tailwind when the year started. Okay,
and I want to dive into that a little bit more with you, specifically talking about Operation Metro Surge. Let me go back though and talk about the DFL. The identity right now. Is this party aligned with their base? Who is the DFL right now?
Well, I think it's most illustrative in the Senate race, which is an open seat because Tina Smith decided not to run again. So you have Angie Craig versus Peggy Flanagan. You have a much more far left member running in Peggy Flanagan. You have a more moderate member in Angie Craig running. And that is the personality. It's a split personality for Democrats right now. But they're unified in their dislike, if not their, general hate of Trump and Republicans. And so they are re-energized in their opposition to Republicans. What Democrats' challenge has been is that within the party, some of their ideas are other ideas that turn off independents. And so I think, and I've said this for a while, the candidate or the party that talks about the future of the state more than the past of the state, I think has a better chance of getting the attention of independents this year.
Okay. Can I ask you a follow-up on independence really quickly? Because this kind of I've been thinking a lot about this. Right after there's a Gallup poll that came out maybe a month ago or so that said that, I'm talking about, it said that the number of people, saying that they're independent is, I think, higher than it's ever been, 40-some%. I asked former Representative Pat Garofalo about that live on All Day, and I said, what do you make of that? And he said, they're lying. He said people vote along party lines. They like to think that they're independent. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think there are more independents, and I think there are more young people who are independents now than in previous generations. We've seen, and we won't see like a full definition of Gen Z voters for a couple more election cycles, but Gen Z voters between 18 and 29 have really shifted. This is a part of my core talk about signal versus noise. Gen Z gets more noise, but they send signals. So for instance, in 2020, women between the ages of 18 and 29 voted at a rate of 63% for Joe Biden. That dropped when a woman was on the ballot. Flip side, young men flipped from Biden to Trump in the majority in 2024. And so they are independent. They are independent-minded. They have some feelings about the economy. They have some feelings about their opportunities in the world. And I think they're going to be an unpredictable voting bloc for some time.
So as we talk specifically more about Operation Metro Surge and how it may impact these elections coming up in November of 26, there was a tweet that you had put out sort of a month ago or so that basically said 2026 was the year the GOP overplayed its hand. Tell me kind of why you said that, and then is that a Minnesota thing, or do you think that'll start to ripple out to other states as well?
Well, first, I think Minnesota's the epicenter of the overplaying of the hand as of right now. I think that it started with the idea that many Republicans were worried that Tim Walz was going to decide not to run again too early that they would have wanted him to drop out of the race later. And so they kept this fraud thing going. You think about between December 26th, when the Nick Shirley video came out, and January 5th, when Governor Walz decided not to run. That was the first overplay. And then the second was this Operation Metro Surge, and the kind of milestones, the tragic milestones since then, first the killing of Renee Good and then the killing of Alex Pretty. I think those two things and Minnesota's response are showing that Democrats were more organized. Republicans didn't have a response. They've been in defense mode for a couple weeks. Even the president retreated, and we know that President Trump does not retreat very often. And so I just think that energized Democrats. It turned off independents, and really raised some really serious historical questions about what's going on in our state and how it reflects to the country. And I think that even though it's only February 3rd, Republicans are probably playing from further behind on February 3rd than they were, in December or January. And that's where the overplaying the hand, I think, is going to impact November.
All right. Finally, we know Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar now running for governor. Who has the best chance of competing/winning that race as a Republican?
Well, I think right now we have to look at the field. We just published the fundraising numbers in Lunch Take, and Lisa Damath had a good fundraising period. She has the most cash. Kristen Robbins has the second. I think either one of them would be most competitive. The challenge for Republicans against Klobuchar is that Klobuchar performs better in greater Minnesota than other Democrats. And that's where Republicans have needed to rack up votes. And so I think, you look at the field of Republicans. I know it's hard to say February 3rd, but we have a lot of campaign season left here, Amy. We can't let all of our news out in, 5 weeks here. So we got to watch this race develop. We have to watch to see how Klobuchar is as a candidate. And, we've had historic news in the last 4 weeks. I'm guessing we're going to have that. But Klobuchar definitely has the advantage going into the next few months.
All right, Blois, there's just so much to talk about. We would love to connect with you regularly here and just keep talking about it. 14 years old, you were caucusing. That's pretty impressive. The caucusing starts tonight at 7. You can go to the Secretary of State's website to their Caucus Finder tool if you want to get involved. Blois, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Em.
All right,
take care.
Take care. All right, let's take a quick break. As we go to break, though, I think we have a little, is it the Mississippi River? Is this the fishing? Oh, I think so. I think we're fishing on the Mississippi. Oh, let's do it. We'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes. Enjoy this moment. And welcome back to All Day Live. This is Pima County Sheriff's Department in Arizona. An update on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, of course, the mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie, expected to start any moment now, just doing what we call white balancing, getting the cameras set for the proper temperature, color temperature. So we will take you there as soon as that gets started. But essentially, investigators say that they have found signs of forced entry into Nancy Guthrie's home. Several media reports saying that authorities found blood inside her home as well. 84 years old. Still no word on any sort of a motive that they might be investigating, but investigators do not believe at this point that an abduction was any part of a robbery or a ransom plot. Of course, Savannah Guthrie has been off the air at NBC, who reportedly skipped the Olympic coverage, understandably. So a lot to try to parse through here, a lot of speculation given who she is and how public she is as well. So we'll keep an eye on that, and Ryan will let me know when we can get there, if you guys just want to leave it up either way, and I can continue to read a few more headlines here as we continue on. So happening any moment now. Actually, there are a few things that have been happening this morning, so why don't I start with some of that. Today there's a hearing, federal grand jury, and Mayor Jacob Fry is one of those who's going to be appearing before the grand jury today. The Department of Justice, the DOJ, is investigating whether state and local leaders obstructed federal agents from conducting their immigration enforcement here in Minnesota. Attorney General Pam Bondi had issued subpoenas. It was 6 offices of 6 elected officials, so we're talking about Governor Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Mayor of Minneapolis-St. Paul among them. The federal government giving Minneapolis Mayor's office about 2 weeks to put together things like a list of any records relating to a year's worth of policies and directives on federal immigration enforcement. As we know, in Minneapolis, there's a separation ordinance there. Records relating to compliance or lack of compliance with immigration detainers. These are the documents that would take somebody out of a jail setting. Any related emails, texts, voice messages, any other directives, anything that would identify an agent or do surveillance on agents as well. So those are the things that the federal government is looking for. The mayor's office did put out a statement this morning saying, quote, we have done nothing wrong and have nothing to hide, but when the federal government weaponizes the criminal justice system against political opponents, it's important to stand up and fight back. We're working with our legal team to take appropriate action under the law, so we'll continue to watch that for you. Also, another update here, again, as we wait for a press conference on an update from Arizona on the case of Savannah Guthrie's mother. We are also following this. There was a court hearing this morning, and I'm going to look through some notes here that I haven't had a chance to get in front of me quite yet, but we know that the man who has been charged with assaulting Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar last week had a detention hearing and then also like a preliminary examination, they call it. So Anthony Kazmierczak is charged with forcibly assaulting and interfering. If you remember this video, the DOJ says he sprayed the syringe of diluted apple cider vinegar at Representative Omar while she was speaking at that town hall. A couple of notes here from court. Prosecutors did use that evidence, that syringe, photo with Representative Omar with a stain from the spray on the lower part of her jacket, and then a criminal complaint was their evidence. And then defense argued that the threat to the Congresswoman was, quote, minimal. It was not sprayed in her face. There was no physical contact between the two, that he has mental health issues, and they argued to put him in a halfway house and not jail. But the judge did rule that he would stay in jail. He would stay in custody. Exceedingly dangerous set of circumstances was the language, and is a danger to the community. So keeping him in custody. Let's see. Let's do. Ryan, do you want to do this other presser here as well? Kind of go down the line, or do you want to go? Okay, all right. Also this morning, so as we're talking about Representative Omar, she was actually one of a group of people, a group of Democrats specifically, who got together this morning to hold a press conference, and they talked specifically about calling for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to be fired or face impeachment. So we want to play that for you now.
I represent Minneapolis, which is currently under occupation. We do not exaggerate when we say we have schools where 2/3 of the students are afraid to go to school. We do not exaggerate when we say we have people who are afraid to go to the hospital because our hospitals have occupying paramilitary forces. We do not exaggerate when we say our restaurants are shutting down because there are not enough people to drive the employees to work and from work. We do not exaggerate when I say we have people who are housing other people because they are afraid to go home. And that is all happening in an American city. We have two neighbors, two of my constituents, who were shot by federal agents as cameras recorded. And their president maligned their name and told us not to believe our eyes. When we say it is time for Kristi Noem to go, we mean it now.
Let's go. Let's go.
When we say there needs to be accountability for the architect of the terror we are facing in Minneapolis and so many other cities, which is Stephen Miller, we mean we need accountability for him now.
Let's go.
So thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining the call to get ICE out of our cities, for us to dismantle this department that is not just rogue, but unlawful. And yes, obviously, if Kristi Noem does not resign and the president doesn't fire her, Democrats are ready and willing to impeach her.
All right, and also on Capitol Hill, we are watching this really carefully because just before we started here at noon, the headline is that we are in day 4 of this partial government shutdown, and it looks like an end is in sight. So we continue to watch the debate that's happening that will officially put this forward. Final vote coming, we think, later this afternoon. But this was essentially that Trump-backed funding deal that was passed in the Senate last week, funding several departments in the federal government through the end of the fiscal year, but then set aside the Department of Homeland Security funding portion. So that is what they'll continue to debate after this. So 2 weeks funding for DHS, and then they'll discuss it further, but the rest of the government will be able to resume once this vote goes through, presumably later this afternoon. Also, another thing that we're watching in Washington, D.C. that has local ties, a public forum that is focused on federal agents' use of force during immigration operations here. On the agenda, we see the attorney representing the family of Renee Good, as well as her brothers. She, of course, was shot when Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent shot into her vehicle. It was January 7th. This is a forum that's organized by Democratic lawmakers, so Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, there's a California Representative, Robert Garcia, as well. Nobody that we see from Homeland Security that's on that list to speak or you know, it's a public forum. So that forum expected to start about 2 o'clock our time, and we are planning to stream it for you live here on fox9.com and Fox Local as well. So it won't be on the television side if you're watching us on television, but you can stream it on your digital platforms. Okay, we're going to take you to the House floor, Ryan. Is that right? Is that where we're going? Oh, okay. They are voting right now, Ryan's telling me. So we'll they're watching it. There we go. So a vote right now. Let's listen into this for just. Do we have audio? Okay, let's listen in for just a second here. right, so again, you are watching live on the House floor right now as they are, I believe, taking a final vote here, which would end the partial government shutdown that's been going on for 4 days, setting aside the DHS funding piece of this. DHS funded for 2 weeks, and then the lawmakers will continue to debate that and move forward over here to the side. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We are going to check your weather, and when we come back, a lot more to come here on All Day Live. Coming up a little bit later, we're going to take you to Washington County, where it's been a year since a man who was pretty well known in a community of Hastings and Prescott. They just need to know what happened to him. It was determined that he was murdered, and they just are really desperate for answers right now a year later. They put together something that we haven't really seen before. We want to talk to the lead investigator, the lead detective on that, and find out how they're trying to refresh people's memories to find out more about William Ike Eickholt when we come back.
Big old high pressure ridge brings in some colder weather for us this morning, especially. We got down to the single digits on both sides of zero around the Twin Cities with that beautifully clear sky through the night last night and into the early morning hours. And temperatures quickly warmed up, though, past those single digits and up into the double digits for the better part of our afternoon. We're heading to the teens today. 19 degrees for a high today, just 2 or 3 degrees shy of where we were yesterday. We hit 22 yesterday. Came with a very light breeze. Today, relatively quiet, relatively calm. So you end up with roughly the same kind of feeling day to day. A veil of some light cloud cover out there continues to kind of become more veil-like. Some thin wispy clouds for the early afternoon become a little bit more noticeable through the day. They start to provide more of a veil as opposed to just kind of a light and wispy cirrus. You get more of a mid and high level cloud cover after, say, 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, getting more partly sunny and then ultimately mostly cloudy overnight tonight as we go down to those single digits. Those cloudier conditions in western Minnesota that are building as we speak turn into some cloudier and flurrier? I'm going with it. Conditions overnight tonight in western Minnesota. And then that leads us to a cloudier day tomorrow, partly sunny to mostly cloudy day on Wednesday, but warmer, very seasonable in the middle 20s. And then we build on that and up to a thaw on Thursday. That's what we've been talking about for 2 or 3 days now. Upper 30s to near 40 on our Thursday afternoon. We do start to step back, 34 for a lunchtime high Friday with chilling temperatures down in the 20s by the late afternoon and evening. Any of your Friday evening plans will be colder with falling temperatures. Patchy sunshine and slightly above average Saturday, and then back to a thaw again, not just Sunday, but especially Monday and beyond. A good chunk of early to middle of next week will have temperatures in the mid to upper 30s.
And welcome back to All Day Live. We want to take you to a live press conference that we are waiting for right now. During Operation Metro Surge, we've seen images of children who have been caught up in this crackdown. On Sunday, of course, 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father were able to return home to Minnesota after the two had spent some time at an ICE facility in Texas. So what's happening now and what we have eyes on, and I don't know, guys, if we have that shot, looks like Governor Walz is getting ready to speak. So they'll be speaking specifically about this. He, A.G. Ellison as well, and some others. Let's listen.
Liam's classmates made us this, and I appreciate that gift. We'll keep it up here to ground everybody in this room and everybody across the country why we're here. I'm here today, and I think with the First Lady, because these are the trusted adults that we surround our children with: school administrators, folks that work with them, teachers, social workers, and these are the people that our children should be around. Not masked agents carrying automatic weapons that are pulling them away from their families and putting them in, by all accounts at this point in time, inhumane living conditions where measles are spreading. So I just want to be clear, this is 9 weeks that Minnesota has been under siege by this federal force across all areas. We've seen the horrific results of that in the murders of 2 of our citizens, shootings of another, countless other acts. But amidst all of this week we got an opportunity to breathe a sigh of relief that Liam was brought home. I say that he should have never been gone. We should never have to be. I am not grateful to the federal government for bringing Liam back. I'm grateful for the people who surrounded him and brought him back, and that was not these people. But here's the thing. We don't know how many others are in the same situation that didn't get a photo that went viral. We don't have good confirmation of where they're at. Those are being Minnesotans. These are our children that were taken from us, sent to Texas in the middle of the night, put in inhumane conditions, and then forcing judges to tell them to bring back and bring them back home. We get each reports that get worse, and I just want to highlight something: just how far from normal we've been, and how the federal government is talking. They call these detention centers tender age detention centers. That is just so wrong, and just such a strange usage of words of how they're trying to justify something that cannot be justified. It's been a week since I met with Tom Homan. Expectations have not changed. This force must leave Minnesota. The state of Minnesota and the professionals, nonpartisan judiciary, must do the investigations into the shootings and other abuses of Minnesota's human rights. And this all-out assault on Minnesota across all of state government and all across life must stop. I sent Kristi Noem a letter today demanding clear answers on how many children are currently being held in federal detention centers, where they're at, why they were taken, and what their due process rights are. And I'm going to let the folks here talk about this, that over the past several weeks, just very disturbing, and we visited many of them. You're going to hear from Superintendent Lewis and Fridley that they've shifted the harassment, the assaults towards our schools. And we were very clear about places that were always off limits in ICE operations, whether they were houses of worship, schools, bus stops, hospitals. But we know that's not been the case. They've been waiting at hospitals. They've been waiting because this is where they can get people. And when it comes to children, our schools, we've got video footage at night of ICE officers walking around schools in the middle of the night. We know that we had reports this morning several times, and our bus drivers, they're following the buses to the bus stops where they let kids off. Again, you're going to report on this, but I'm just trying to level set on this. None of this is normal. None of this is okay. None of this makes Minnesota any safer. None of this adheres to the values of this country. All it does is cause terror and trauma to the children who are there, but to the children in their classrooms today who are making little bunnies because their preschool classmate has been all over the news and was ripped away from his families. So we will just make it absolutely clear. that we are trying to continue to work with the federal government to find a viable solution. But in all of these things, the onus lies on the federal government to follow the law, follow the court orders, follow human decency, and do the very simple thing of drawing this force back down, doing immigration reform within the rules of law, making sure that the crimes that were committed against the citizens of Minnesota are fully investigated and potentially prosecuted here in the state of Minnesota, and that the assault on Minnesota ends. And I think all of us over the last few days have become very clear that the letter I received last week around the voting rolls was the central theme of this entire situation that we're in, and that proved true down in Georgia, and it proved true by the president's own words yesterday as he said the Republicans need to federalize the elections, especially in the 15 states, which would include Minnesota. So we know what this is about, but the thing that we're about and the reason that we're here today is this is about protecting Minnesotans and most especially our children and our most vulnerable. So I'm grateful to have this team around me. I'm grateful for the work that's being done. There's an awful lot of that happening on the legal front, and with that, I'll turn to Attorney General Ellison.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, First Lady. Well, yeah, I want to say that we're very grateful for our governor, who has been leading from the front in this very difficult time. As you know, we're so happy that Liam Conejo, which means rabbit, Ramos is just 5 years old, but I tell you this, he'll never forget what happened to him. And I remember when I was about 5 years old and living in Detroit, and I remember being on my tiptoes, looking through the window, seeing military vehicles go by, and that was when our city was having civil unrest, and I was about 5. And I'm 62, and I remember it. Anyway, I'm so glad that Liam and his father, Adrian, are home, happy for their family, and I'm grateful for Judge Berry for helping to bring Liam home. But it is a sign of how far we are from the normal rule of law that a judge even would have to make a decision like this one. But I think it's important for people to read the decision. This is an amazing decision for a court, for an American judge to have to write. And if you read the ruling, you'll see that Judge Berry felt the same way that Governor Walz feels and that I feel, and the First Lady feels, I think. And that is, he called the Operation Metro Surge ill-conceived and incompetently implemented. Let me tell you, that's about as powerful a language you're ever going to read in a judicial decision. Decrying the pursuit of daily deportation quotas, he said, quote, apparently require traumatizing children, unquote. Again, this is a judge who's prone to mild language, even in serious cases. He called out the government for its, quote, ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. Just to let all of us know how far afield we are from the moorings of our nation. The Trump administration clearly needs a remedial lesson in the founding documents and the values of our country. And I think that the educators standing behind me are the ones to do that. Over the last few weeks, I've had to remind the administration about the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, as we see that Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, although 2 courts found that there was no probable cause to arrest Don Lemon. The Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. All of a sudden, Trump and his allies have forgotten that they've been the one saying a lot of stuff about the Second Amendment. The second someone who doesn't agree with them exploits that right, now it's an issue. The Fourth Amendment that protects all of us from unlawful search and seizure. In his order releasing Liam and his father, Judge Bailey quoted the Fourth Amendment in its entirety, and he also wrote, quote, administrative warrants issued by the executive branch to itself do not pass probable cause muster, unquote, adding that this is called the the fox guarding the henhouse. And, of course, the 10th Amendment, critically important, in fact, a founding, kind of the glue that holds federalism together, the power balance between the federal government and the states, attempts to commandeer Minnesota's resources and to bully us into compliance, which it cannot do. It's called commandeering, and we filed a lawsuit against it. Though we did not get the TRO that we felt we deserved, our case moves on, and we are very, very optimistic about the outcome. In his decision, Judge Bliley recalled how our nation in its infancy stood up to tyranny, and he quoted Thomas Jefferson's writing about the would-be authoritarian king sending swarms of officers to harass our people. Does that sound familiar? The administration has forgotten that standing up to tyranny is our DNA as Americans. It is in the founding and original documents of our nation and the incidents that preceded the founding of the United States and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So I cannot believe that I have to offer reminders of this nature and on how the federal government should treat our children. Minnesotans have shown so much courage, but we shouldn't have to ask for that kind of courage of our children. But they have shown it. Kids should be thinking about homework or their favorite Pokemon. I mean, is that still a thing? Maybe I'm behind the times. Or getting a good night's sleep, or not worrying about if their father or mother will come home, or whether they'll be taken against their will to a faraway state or to a country that they've never known. But sadly, as Judge Berry also wrote, quote, observing human behavior confirms that for some of us, the perfidious lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest know no bounds and are bereft of human decency. Amen. Unquote. Minnesotans know. Clearly the judge knows. Sadly, our kids know too. So we're going to take not just the letter, but the spirit of this great decision by a wonderful jurist and carry on in defense of the rights of all Minnesotans. Thank you, Governor.
Good afternoon. I don't have much to say today because for me, this is extremely simple. What is happening right now is harming children. Just the other day, I was on an airplane heading home, and in the seat next to me was a 5-year-old who wanted nothing more than to share his grapes with me, play little number games, and with pure delight, feel my bald head like it was the funniest thing he had ever seen. And to my new young friend, Wes, from Central Minnesota, thank you for making that plane ride more fun than expected. You see, Wes doesn't care about headlines. He doesn't carry anger. And he certainly doesn't walk through any part of this world with fear in his heart. He just gets to be a kid. That sweetness, that innocence, that joy is something every child, every young person deserves to experience. So what is happening across our state, the great state of Minnesota, what is happening in schools and communities that should be safe havens for our students, is robbing children of the pieces of that innocence. It's eroding their sense of safety. It's interrupting the full academic experience that we work so hard to create in every classroom. So from me, from the Department of Education, from everybody here, the governor and the First Lady, to our educators across Minnesota, it's simple. Thank you. To the school support professionals, volunteers, coaches, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, and counselors, thank you. Every day you show up to keep kids learning and safe, and you are doing the best work in this state. So our ask is please let us commit, every one of us, to protect our children's joy, protect their right to safety and learning, and protect their right to be children and young adults in full. Like I said in the very beginning, what is happening right now, it's harming young people.
Thank you. Commissioner Cunningham.
Good afternoon. I'm Brooke Cunningham, Commissioner of Health. I want to make a few brief comments, many of which may be echoed by the concerns that others share here this afternoon. Public health officials, policymakers, academics, and others have long raised concerns about the conditions in detention facilities. While many facilities have screening and safety protocols, we do not know the rigor of those protocols or their compliance with them. It is not clear to us what kind of medical care or consideration is being provided to the people in detention, and we are learning about situations like the measles outbreak in that Texas facility through the media. Certain groups are at greater risk of poor outcomes, including young children, pregnant people, the elderly, and those who are immunocompromised. And I don't think we can overstate the psychological stress of detention itself. In addition to the concerns about the public health impacts of detention and the conditions in these facilities, we also know that federal actions have taken a toll on the mental and physical health of Minnesotans. People are afraid to leave their homes. Families are delaying care or not going in at all. Community clinics are reporting high no-show rates. And in public health, we talk about adverse childhood experiences and how the exposure to trauma, to stress, to parental separation and instability can affect a child's development and their health over a lifetime. A child's well-being flourishes in nurturing, stable environments, not in an environment of fear and uncertainty.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dr. Lewis.
Good afternoon. I am Brenda Lewis, the Superintendent of Fridley Public Schools. And what I am sharing today is a tiny fraction of the clear and present reality in my district and many districts throughout the state. Let me be very clear about my role. I am not here to debate or shape immigration policy. That is not my lane. My responsibility, and frankly my obligation, is the safety of children, families, and staff, and the right of every single child to come to school to learn without fear. For weeks, I have been speaking out and publicly documenting the impact of ICE activity in and around our schools. I have done so transparently because our children, families, our staff, and the public deserves honesty. And they have the right to learning environments that are safe, stable, and academically focused, not terror-ridden zones defined by fear and intimidation. Since doing that, the retaliation has been real, and it has been escalating every single day. I have personally been followed twice by ICE agents. I am a U.S.-born citizen, born in Lake City, Minnesota. One of our school board members was followed for over an hour. U.S.-born citizen. Multiple board members have had ICE vehicles outside of their homes for many hours on end. This happened last week and again yesterday. 4 black SUVs outside of a board member's home multiple times yesterday. ICE staged at 2 of our school buildings on Saturday, moments after the New York Times article was released. They also staged again this morning. This is not incidental. This is not benign, and it is having a devastating impact on our school community and school communities throughout Minnesota. I think we can all agree that none of us want violent criminals who are not here legally in our neighborhoods. But I also ask, I believe we all agree that we do not want school children terrorized, families afraid, or our staff prevented from attending and working in our schools because of sheer and present terror. Right now, students are afraid to come to school. Parents are afraid to drop them off. Staff are coming to work wondering if today will be the day that something happens in one of our buildings. We are seeing attendance impacts. Families are choosing virtual learning not because it's best for their child, but because fear has taken over. And this fear is not perceived. This is justified fear. In response, we have stood up every support we can because that is what public schools do. We have added security. We have added trained observers at all of our buildings. We have adjusted transportation. We have adjusted arrival procedures. We have adjusted dismissal procedures. We have increased social work, counseling, and mental health supports. We have expanded virtual learning and meal access for families afraid to leave their homes. We have cabinet-level leaders physically present in every single one of our buildings. We are communicating constantly with transparency and care. I personally patrol around all of our schools every morning and every afternoon. And when I do this, I certainly lets me know through hand gestures that they know who I am. And still, our fear persists because no amount of school-based support can undo the trauma caused by federal agents posturing in, on, and near our school properties. Schools must be safe places. They must never become places of intimidation. ICE does not belong in and around our schools, in and around our bus stops. Their presence is harming children. It is disrupting learning, and it's eroding trust. I will continue to be transparent. I will continue to speak up. And I am asking urgently for action. Get ICE out of schools, out of parking lots, and out of our bus stops. Our children deserve to feel safe when they come to school. This is not political. This is all of our responsibility.
Thank you, Tracy.
Hello. My name is Tracy Zhang, and I'm the school social worker at Highland Elementary in Columbia Heights. As many of you know, our communities and schools have been heavily targeted by ICE. You've heard from many representatives today about what's happening to our families, but I want to share what this looks like inside of the school from a staff member and what it looks like for children, educators, and the families that we serve. Over the past month, my role as a school social worker has changed drastically. I rarely meet with students anymore, and it's not because they don't need support, it's because we see fewer kids walking through the doors each day. Students used to be absent because they were sick, now they're absent because they feared deportation. Students used to ask me for help navigating friendships, now they ask me how to cope with ICE breaking apart their families and taking their friends. Much of my day is now spent coordinating food deliveries to homes, finding volunteers to transport students to school, and making sure basic needs are met for families who are too afraid to leave their homes. My job has always been to ensure students have food, clothing, and shelter, but I never imagined having to provide these services under such traumatic and distressing circumstances. Our teachers and staff are no longer just educators. They have become caregivers, advocates, and lifelines for our students and families. They deliver food, walk students to and from school, patrol school grounds to ensure safety, and do countless other things behind the scenes that most people never see. Our teachers are deeply committed. They really are. They're passionate, and they will always step up for their families and students, but they are exhausted. I am exhausted. Every day, I see the stress, tears, and fear as they face the uncertainty of each school day. How many kids will be in class that day? And how many will go home to find a parent missing? We're grateful that Liam and his father were able to return home safely, though we know this is just the beginning of the support that he'll need to process this experience that will likely have long-lasting traumatic effects. I also want to share the story of another Columbia Heights student, the first student in our district to be detained a month ago. That morning, I was asked to help locate a fourth grade student, Elizabeth Zuna. I met her father, Luis, in the hallway, and he told me that Elizabeth and her mother had been taken by ICE that morning on her way to school. Elizabeth was able to call her dad, and an ICE agent said they were going to bring her to school. Several staff members, including myself, waited outside the school building for a vehicle to approach and drop her off. No one ever came. That morning turned into hours of phone calls, desperately trying to locate a child. We did everything we could to keep Elizabeth's father calm and allowed him to remain at school as we searched for answers. By that afternoon, we had learned that Elizabeth and her mother were already taken to Texas. In my profession, I have seen many people break down in grief, but the image of Elizabeth's father will stay with me forever. I watched him sit in his car, bury his head in his hands, and cry uncontrollably. And those are images you do not forget. Today, Elizabeth and her mother are still being held in a detention center in Dilley, Texas. We urge our leaders to act with compassion, common sense, and urgency, because children belong in schools, not in detention. We're calling for Elizabeth to be allowed to wait out this legal process in a safe, humane, and loving environment, one that recognizes her dignity, humanity, and her right as a child. Children deserve safety, and schools should be places of learning, not fear. And no child should ever disappear on her way to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And a thank you to the folks who spoke here. We're living at a time when school administrators fear for their own safety for speaking up about the most basic of things of protecting their children and asking them not to do this. I'm grateful to the tens of thousands of Minnesotans who've taken to the streets, the helpers who've helped us, kept this peaceful. I will say the anger and the moral outrage that I feel, I think is felt by many Minnesotans. We're trying to act like we're negotiating some type of budget deal or something. Nothing could be further from the truth. The extortion that the federal government's trying to put on Minnesota and the harm, this is on purpose. This is on purpose to hurt us and make us fear and capitulate. But I think it's been clear, and I hope folks are listening who can make a decision on this. This group's going nowhere. Our parents are going nowhere. We'll stand with our children as many weeks, months, years it takes to do this, to end this, as the judge said, ill-conceived, dangerous operation that has nothing to do with safety or sane immigration policy. So, Minnesotans, stand that line, do so peacefully, know that every lever of power that we can possibly exert, from the Attorney General's office, from the Secretary of State's office, from the Governor's office, every elected official, and on the federal level, is being used. And I don't know, I don't think appealing to decency, appealing to human values matters. I think we just have to appeal that we're going nowhere, and this is still a democracy, and votes will be cast for decency over cruelty, for democracy over authoritarianism. But that can't be our only plan. Elizabeth needs to be home today. These children need to be accounted for today. We cannot wait for midterm elections, especially when it's very clear that there is no intention by this federal government to have fair elections. There's every intention to suppress those. So I'm grateful for this team. I'm grateful for the work. Know that the state of Minnesota, through the Department of Health, the Department of Education, and all of our tools, is working to make sure that we're addressing what are going to be long-term mental and physical issues that come out of this, but we will continue with it. With that, we'll take questions. Yes. Go. Good. I have not spoken directly to them yet.
What do you make of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announcing that federal agents will begin wearing body cameras in Minneapolis?
Look, I'll just say this. Kristi Noem is the most ill-prepared and absolutely worst choice for any cabinet position we could. The idea of after three of our Minnesotans are shot, 2 murdered, all of that's happened. How about that body camera Alex footage? I've been asking for that. I asking for the names of who did it. I'm asking for some response. This is called damage control, and the audacity after they were given $70 billion and are the 5th largest army in the world, that they're asking for more taxpayer dollars from states like Minnesota, who are payer states. I put no stake in what she says at all, but here's the good thing is, every single Minnesotan has a camera. Keep filming, keep keeping track of this, keep accountability.
Governor, there seems to be a feeling among many in Minnesota that there's no path out of this, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Where did you leave things with Tom Homan? When's the last time you spoke to him?
This morning, and I articulated again, we're not in a negotiation, we're not in a demand, we follow law, they know that, you've reported on that, and my expectation, not a demand, my expectation is draw down these forces, get them all out of here, give us the ability to investigate the murders of our neighbors and stop the assault on Minnesota. It would be my expectation, and it's there in their court, especially after everything that's happened here and with Liam and Elizabeth and countless faceless others who are our children, that they will address this. And it's my expectation and that we will see a dramatic shift in where this is at for the better for Minnesota starting this week. That would be my expectation. So, yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Governor Walz. There are 4 students in Columbia.
All day live, and we will be right back after this. Welcome back to All Day Live. We want to take you back out to the Capitol, where I think they're still answering some questions here, the Q&A. Governor Walz and some school leaders talking about the effect of Operation Metro Surge on children. Let's listen.
Political discussion, and I'm not in a debate with you on this. We need a full capitulation by the Republicans to talk about how horrific this was. Ask them to get out of here, and then help us clean up the mess that they created. Yes.
What are your thoughts about the Stall bill to withhold federal funding and turn over voter information?
Well, it's not going to happen, and that's the extent of Pete Stauber's intellect and legislative ability, so we'll move on.
Question for the AG. Is there any legal recourse that will come of the targeting of children and their families on school grounds? Is there anything being considered in that realm?
Yeah, well, let me just say that our lawsuit against Operation Metro Surge covered all of these things. And I just want everybody to know there's a little bit misunderstanding about the posture of the case. The court did not give us the emergency temporary relief we were looking for, but the case moves on, and we are seeking expedited discovery and look forward to a decision as soon as possible. But The reason for the court's decision is because no president ever marshaled the forces of the ICE or anything else to attack one state this way. So there's really not much in the area of precedent. And so we believe there was enough for the court to make the decision that it did. It ended up ruling in the way it saw best. But this case marches on, and it does have everything to do with the relief that we're seeking to protect our children, our schools, and many other public institutions, and the rights of every Minnesotan. So,
yes. With NBC, sir.
Yes.
A follow-up on the body camera question. Body camera programs only work if the video is released.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
have any confidence that the administration will release video when tragedies happen, when controversies happen, when the public didn't?
No. And you could have backed up that when you framed that question. You have any confidence in the administration? No, on everything. On every single thing that comes after that, because they've proven to be the case. I mean, this, and I don't even understand from the politics of this. This is just stupid politics on their part, because I would guess that 90% of Americans are like, we don't believe you're going to release the footage, and why did you bring this up after the fact when they should have already had, and it's state law in Minnesota that you have body cameras on and you turn over that footage. So no, there's absolutely no reason. I still have yet to have them confirm to me who killed Alex, what their names were. If I'm not mistaken, you can help me on this. Have they confirmed that those names that were released are theirs, or they did it? No, they have not, right? Governor of Minnesota had two of my citizens killed, and yet we don't get a confirmation on who did it, what's happening, and at this point in time still saying we have no say in any of the investigation into that, let alone potential prosecution. So I think we're the frogs in the boiling water, and man, it is bubbling now. This is foundational, as the Attorney General said, to everything this country is founded on. And this assault on Minnesota, for whatever false reason they want to give, and it continues to change, they don't care. And I would say what's most terrifying about this is if you ask the question, do I have any faith that this administration will honor court orders? No, I do not.
Governor,
I do not. Go ahead, Eric.
Governor, do you have concerns about the midterm elections? How will we
Not because of how Minnesota does it, because Steve Simon and the nonpartisan or Republican and Democrat who run these elections in our counties, in the states, as it is by the Constitution, as the 10th Amendment guarantees, and Minnesotans' elections are the fairest, the freest, the most secure, and the most well-attended. And that makes us a target. And that is exactly why the President of the United States said, not they, he said Republicans should federalize the election with at least 15 states. When is the President of the United States receive a nightly call from an FBI special agent raiding a voting section with the Director of National Intelligence? I don't know. I always used to talk to my students when I would teach them about history. I said the challenging thing about when an event happens is it's kind of like trying to read when it's up close, and you get a little space as time goes by and you're able to understand. The rest of the world is seeing this for what it is. All of us need to understand that too, and I will again make my appeal to the other 49 states and territories. We're just the test grounds for this. And what works here and what doesn't work here, and a softening or whatever, they're going to find out. As of today, I got to be honest with you, less smoke on the ground, but I think it's more chilling than it was last week because of the shift to the schools, the shift to the children, the shift to this type of stuff. So, yeah.
Sort of kind of rephrase your own words back to you, but I'd like you to clarify when you said about your phone call with Holden, and you ended that by saying it's your expectation you might start to see a shift kind of within the week. What makes you confident to say that, and what shift do you expect to see?
Well, the shift I expect to see is pretty simple. A clear reduction of these forces immediately back to pre-levels and 100, 150 that were here on a normal basis, working on the worst of the worst, working with the State Department of Corrections for decades, all of the normal processes on getting the worst of the worst out of here, letting us be part of these investigations, the BCA being part of the investigations, and then a reduction in this attack across us. I would hope that would be there. Look, we all know that the only reason Tom Homan's here and Bovino's here because Donald Trump was watching TV last Saturday, a week ago, saw the horrific aftermath of Alex's murder, and told them that this doesn't look good. He even used terms like, well, you know, that guy's stock's not as high as it is anymore. This is reality TV for him, and he was losing in the ratings. He's going to continue to lose in the ratings. So my expectations on this is not that they found any heart, not that Liam being down in a, a measles-infested facility with no safeguards, Minnesotans being terrorized. None of that's making a difference. What's making a difference is a district that they won by 17 points got flipped by 14 points the other way. And those are the things that happen. So that's our expectation. Yeah, we'll go.
That is your impression is based on what Mr. Holman said to you, not your view of the state of play. What he said.
Yeah, it's my a combination of both.
The immigration enforcement efforts on the ground, specifically in schools. We want to take you now to Capitol Hill, where the House's final vote has come in. So the partial government shutdown is over. This is House Speaker Mike Johnson, who was able to wrangle enough votes. House Democrats actually helped Speaker Johnson end the shutdown. Let's listen in.
Over the last couple of cycles, we need to tighten that up. Now, the red states have done a lot of good work in that front, but it's the blue states that I'm frankly concerned about. So we'll see how the law is modified and what's changed, but I hope we can get consensus to get that done. Yeah.
Pope Leo has cited Matthew 25:35 to critique Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda. How would you respond to Pope Leo in Scripture?
So you want me to give you a theological dissertation? All right, I'll tell you what, I'll post it on my website later today, but let me give you a quick summary. Borders and walls are biblical. From the Old Testament to the New, God has allowed us to set up our civil societies and have separate nations. Immigration is not something that's frowned upon in Scripture. In fact, it's welcome. We're to welcome the sojourner and love our neighbor as ourselves. But what's also important in the Bible is that assimilation is expected and anticipated and proper. When someone comes into your country, comes into your nation, they do not have the right to change its laws or to change its society. They're expected to assimilate. We haven't had a lot of that going on. When people cite passages out of the Old Testament, they say, well, you're supposed to take care of the sojourner and the neighbor, treat them as yourself, welcome them in. Yes, but that is an admonition to individuals, not to the civil authorities. The civil authorities are given authority under Scripture to maintain order. Romans 12, you want to do this? Romans 13 says that the civil authorities are God's agents of wrath to bring punishment upon the wrongdoer. And it says if you do right, you have no fear of the civil authorities, but those civil authorities are necessary. It's a calling. It's a calling to maintain order in society, and we have not had that. When Biden and Harris opened the borders wide for 4 years, we had as many as 20 million illegals come across the country, and we all know many dangerous people, hardened criminals, child molesters, rapists, murderers, all the rest, terrorists who came into the country. We did not take care of our borders. Sovereign borders are biblical and good and right. And
so we have been listening to House Speaker Mike Johnson. The House's final vote is over, and Speaker Johnson was able to get those House Democrats to get on board and help end that partial government shutdown. It's actually created quite a few divisions within the Democratic Party, so we'll be watching for that in the days to come. But this would now send the bill to the president's desk, so the partial government shutdown over, the government will be funded, and then the separate DHS, the Department of Homeland Security funding portion of this, it's funded for 2 weeks, and then they'll continue to debate from there. So we want to take a quick break and come on back. When we do, we're going to take you to Washington County, where we're going to take another look at the sort of the 1-year anniversary of the death of 74-year-old William Eickholt, also known as Ike, somebody who's well known in that community, and investigators want to put some more information out there, try to jog memories, and we'll do that when All Day Live continues right after this. And welcome back to All Day Live. This week marks 1 year since 74-year-old Hastings. His body was found in a ditch along the Ravenna Trail, a gunshot wound to his head. 6 months later, Ike's death was ruled a homicide, and that investigation intensified. Joining me now is the lead investigator, Detective Cooper Belaseno from the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
So it's been a year, 6 months since it was declared a homicide. Are you any closer to finding out who may have killed William Ike Eickholt?
I think we've made some leaps and bounds in the investigation, but there's still a lot of gaps that we need to fill in, a lot of questions answered.
Yeah. It's I'm sure, a delicate balance. Do you want to talk a little bit about, in a situation like this, there's information you can give and then there's information you can't. I mean, how do you kind of navigate that balance?
Yeah, it's kind of a tightrope to walk. I don't want to disseminate too much information that would jeopardize our investigation, but I also want to push out some information to the surrounding communities to hopefully jog their memories and see if anybody can remember anything that they saw or heard that weekend of February 1st or 2nd that might lead to some helpful information for this investigation.
Okay. Let's highlight, I think, one of those things that may be able to jog somebody's memory, where he was last seen. I think we have an image here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where Ike was last seen and what we're looking at here?
Yeah, this is a photo from a nearby gas station in Hastings, Minnesota, on the corner of Highway 10 and 61. That's where that photo was taken, and that's when we last know he was seen alive, at least. Everything that we found from this picture and some interviews is he wasn't in any danger, from what we could tell. And if anybody in the area saw him in that area, they just need to come forward and at least talk to us.
And you mentioned that he's kind of known in the community. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, Ike was a pretty social person from what we could find out. He did have his own way of dressing in women's clothing. So he did stand out to some in the nearby communities.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
But nonetheless, just a very friendly person.
Yeah, along those lines, I remember when we first were trying to figure things out a year ago, there were some, I think, friends who we interviewed who had concerns that maybe this was targeted, maybe perhaps a hate crime, as somebody who Ike was known as dressing in women's clothing. Has your investigation taken you there at all?
Yeah, so far, every lead that we've chased down and the evidence that we have presented in front of us, we don't have any reason to believe at this time that this was or was not a hate crime or that he was specifically targeted because of the way he dressed.
Okay. Your office put out a video, almost like a mini documentary. It's about 6.5 minutes on your Facebook page, a timeline, several key facts, and it starts with a sheriff's deputy, I believe, from Washington County on routine patrol, sees two vehicles engulfed in a fire, I think, at the end of a driveway, and we're seeing the body cam here. It's really dramatic. Approaching the cars, I think, not sure if somebody's there. This is it here. At some point, live ammo starts popping off from that scene, and so as he's going to take cover, he says his flashlight picks up, he says, 4 big pools of blood in the driveway. So walk us through, as we're trying to get more information out, exactly where this is in relation to then where you end up finding the body of Mr. Eickholt the next day.
Yeah, so this is William's property. This is where he lived, I believe, for the last 6 months leading up to his death. And where he was found was about 5 miles away on Ravenna Trail on the side of the road from this property.
And so he was someone, I remember at the time there were questions about whether he was homeless or because he was sometimes seen at the edge of that driveway to people who would drive by. Tell me a little bit about, I understand he was not homeless. Tell us about his situation and those vehicles at the driveway.
So in the summer of 2024, his house did burn down. That was also investigated by the Washington County Sheriff's Office. As far as we know, nothing suspicious surrounding the circumstances of that house fire. But then following that, William just lived out of his 2 cars temporarily and primarily parked them at the end of his driveway.
Okay, so his home, and you see this in the video, his home burned down in 2024. In the video, I think you say he didn't want any help in a rebuilding. Was there ever a cause of that fire?
None so far.
Okay. Are there any other pieces of, who he was, things he was a part of, organizations, groups that could help, trigger somebody's memory?
Yeah, he was just a well-known member of the community from what we have come to find out just through interviews and canvassing nearby businesses. I know he stood out to a lot of people, and those that did approach him and did have a relationship with him had pretty fond memories of him. I know he was in the Navy, and he was an avid gun collector too. We know that he did attend several gun shows throughout the state. So I know he has a pretty extensive network of people that he may have known.
And then I want to ask you too about the location where his body was eventually found the next day. Tell me specifically what that area is. And it's my understanding it's fairly a well-traveled road that he was found near.
Yeah, Ravenna Trail in Hastings, we know that is a main road to get to a nearby casino. So that's the hope too with posting this video is if somebody was on their way to the casino that night or at least traveling that.
Is that Treasure Island? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. If they saw something suspicious and just didn't think maybe it was worth reporting at the time, to at least come forward, call the sheriff's office tip line, which is posted on the video, and at least share that information so we can at least investigate it.
And then I wanted to also ask you, because at the end of the video, and again I encourage anybody to go and check it out, no such thing as a bad tip. I mean, you want to call in anything that you might think, I would imagine, but it was interesting to know that you made contact with family and that they shared a letter. Do you want to just let us know kind of what they had to say in that letter?
Yeah, I actually don't have it in front of me,
That's
but
okay.
it just outlined Bill's personality, just being a kind and loving person.
And clearly somebody who, people, when you read the comments underneath the video, you can just see how many people knew of him and are concerned and really want to, for the community's sake, also find some answers here. So thank you. Appreciate it very much, Detective. And again, you can check out that video on the Washington County Facebook page. And we wish you the best of luck in trying to solve this.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more All Day Live after this.
cold morning this morning. Here around the Twin Cities, both sides of zero. We get down to 3 officially in the metro, but we dabbled with a light chill at times below zero. But you go to anywhere in the southern half of the state, chances are you did see a minus sign for a good chunk of the viewing area. But we had teens and even 20s below zero across the northern third of Minnesota for air temperature. Luckily, most folks did not experience a breeze, but it led to a very bright day today as we have sharp shadows as we look across parts of Central Park and Maple Grove. Plenty of blue sky up above, but that cloud cover continues to kind of build as we slide through the afternoon. A little band of some cloud cover thickens, especially in western Minnesota this afternoon. A little veil of some cloud cover into the 3 and the 4 and the 5 o'clock hour. The sun doesn't go down until 5:23. Our day is getting awfully close to 10 hours. We get there toward the end of the week this week. By tonight will be mostly cloudy sky. Overnight tonight we'll see some pocket flurries develop into the overnight hours as we go on into the overnight and into early tomorrow morning, especially west and northwest of town. That's part of the warmer air surging our way. That will allow us to hang out with some extra cloud cover for tomorrow. Partly sunny to mostly cloudy sky, but highs up in the 20s. Very seasonable, mid-20s for your day on Wednesday. Then a warm front rolls on by. It'll spark some very light snow, especially northeast of town, into late Wednesday night as we go on through the middle of the night. But that escorts in some warmer air, and we're talking about highs in the upper 30s in the Twin Cities, some lower 40s just south of town possible for our thaw day on Thursday. Ooh, the THs reign supreme on our Thursday. We put it together on a forecast, then here's what shakes out. Cool sunshine for today, quiet as those late afternoon and evening clouds continue to kind of lower and thicken as we go on in from a veil to a mostly cloudy overnight. A high today around 19. Now that's just 3 degrees lower than yesterday, but without much of a breeze, it ends up kind of roughly the same feel. And yesterday wasn't too bad. 9 overnight tonight, but teens to the west with thicker cloud cover through the night and a few flurries across western or northwestern Minnesota. And then back to a seasonable afternoon on Wednesday. Mostly cloudy to partly sunny sky. Relatively quiet, though. High around 26 into the day on Wednesday afternoon, which is perfectly average for this time of year. As we go into the day on Thursday, we build partly sunny conditions. Highs in the upper 30s in the Twin Cities. Some 40s possible across southern Minnesota as a whole. Beautiful afternoon with plenty of melting and thawing going on. Barely refreezing as we head on into Friday morning. And then hanging out in the low to mid 30s through about lunchtime or so. And then temperatures fall quite quickly Friday afternoon into the 20s as we go on into your evening plans as the kids come home from school or dinner time, going out for Friday night fun. It'll be colder, falling quickly into Friday night. Not blustery, just air mass changes as we go on into Friday night. Saturday, mid to upper 20s again with patchy sunshine, so seasonable temperatures. And then back to a thaw again on Sunday, a high of 33, and then committing to it. Not just on Monday, but if I had an 8 or a 9-day forecast, we'd still be bouncing around those mid to upper 30s for afternoon highs in through at least the middle days of next week.
right, let's talk Timberwolves, shall we? Because there's some breaking news. As luck would have it, we have Andrew Dukowitz on the line. Andrew, joining me now, fresh off of the socials, Shams with ESPN, say it ain't so. Mike Conley is going to the Bulls?
I mean, that's what's reported. Mike Conley got traded out to the Bulls. So far, nothing that the Wolves are getting back other than kind of the cap relief of shedding Mike Conley's salary. And the Bucks, or not the Bucks, the Pistons are also getting the swap rights to Minnesota's pick this summer if it happens to be in a better position than Pistons. So
also sending the Timberwolves also sending Jaden Ivey. I read Jaden and I got really nervous. Jaden Ivey, which we're sorry to miss him too. But Mike Conley Jr., that one hurts big time. But as you said, so if this fleshes out, this frees up money. For those who don't follow, the money trails here, what does that mean for the Wolves moving ahead here in the next month or so?
Yeah, I mean the trade deadline's on Thursday, so effectively what the move does is it kind of opens up a little more wiggle room for the Wolves to make a bigger deal without getting into an hour and a half long conversation about the weird cap structures of the NBA. Essentially, where the Wolves were sitting before the trade, if they were to make a trade, they could take no money more back than they were sending out. So if you send out $10, you can't get $10 and 1 penny back. It has to be $10 or less. Now with Mike out, they're a different level in that over the cap where now they can take more salary back than they were to send out, as long as it doesn't put them back into the original spot they were at. So it just gives them some flexibility. On the other money side, I think just with like the tax rules in the NBA, if this is just kind of a salary shedding moment, I think A-Rod and Laurie get to keep like $30 million or something like that. Wow. So if it's a salary shedding thing of just, giving Mike a different opportunity and keeping some money on the books, that also could be what it is. But with all of the news that the Wolves have been in the trade deadline, it makes more sense that there might be another thing coming.
Okay, and I know this just happened, and again, this is Shams reporting this. Nothing is official here, so there's not been a lot of time to do a lot of math here. But we know that Giannis, of course, has been a name that has been out there for potential, Wolves acquisition. What do we know? Like, what have you heard? How much closer are we to figuring out who might be a piece, especially now that this has happened?
Yeah, it's hard to say on the Giannis front because everything for the Bucks, it makes significantly more sense to hold on to him until the summer and then trade him in the summer where, you're getting all of the teams in the NBA that can make trades and interested in him and not just some of the teams. From the Wolves standpoint, the Mike deal doesn't really help a whole lot with a Giannis deal. It would still require the Wolves sending out like $53 million in salaries to try and match Giannis's as close as they can. So it would still be like Julius and Jaden, Julius and Nas. Maybe it's Julius goes to a third team and Jaden and Nas go to the Bucks with some other things, but it still would be a really disruptive team just to make it like just to make the money aspect work. It would be really disruptive to kind of the current team.
Okay, can we talk about Mike Conley just for a minute? If those who may not follow the Wolves or the NBA, he's kind of thought of as kind of like the uncle or the dad of the locker room. He's 38, right? Something like that. Tell me something. Tell me about something that you've experienced. With him, a conversation you've had, something that really just kind of sticks out to you.
Yeah, Mike is just one of the good guys. He's won the Teammate of the Year, I think, 4 years in a row. Sportsmanship Award, has played 17, 18 years and never gotten a technical. Everyone on the Wolves, I mean, from asking about what daycares they should use to like how to mend a relationship to playing time, they all go to Mike. He literally is the kind of uncle, father Nikhil last year kind of compared him as the nice older brother, and Joe's kind of the, the more unserious one. But just, I mean, Mike, my interactions with him, because he came into the league in 2007, I've seen him play my entire adult life. So my interactions with him have been a lot of like, how do you like manage 3 kids and being an NBA player? Like,
no kidding.
You have basketball practice, hockey practice, your own practice, and then a game in Memphis. Like, how do you do it? And he's just a really down-to-earth, nice guy of like, I don't sleep a lot. That's how I do it. Which I think that's one of the things I'll always take from being around Mike, is just how normal of a person he is for someone that at one time in Memphis, he signed the richest NBA contract in history.
Wow. I didn't know that. I never knew that about him. Wow, that's incredible. So can we talk a little bit about what's happening with this team right now? Just kind of when you think it's #Wolves back, and we never quite throw in the towel, but the incredible performance against the OKC. And then you got the Grizzlies, and you never really have control of that game last night. How are you seeing this?
I mean, I wish I could say it was something new, but over the last 4 years, this has just kind of been how the Wolves operate, of just, they almost need themselves with their back up against the wall to play at their best. So they lose 5 straight games, kind of culminating in that really weird Sunday game after, all of the unrest here in the city. And then they go and rip 4 games off in a row against Golden State, Oklahoma City. They win the first game in Memphis. I think vibes are high, and then they almost have to come back to earth because the vibes get a little too high. So it's disappointing, it's frustrating for fans especially, who kind of look at the Wolves and what are their title chances, but it's also just kind of who this team is at this point. They're a team that plays best when the lights are on them and they have nowhere else to go, and they play their worst when no one's watching.
It's interesting. Just a couple minutes left here, but I remember after the OKC game, it was a win, and they were interviewing Ant in the post game. I don't know if you saw this as well, but they were talking to him, and one of his answers I thought, oh gosh, should he have said that? But they asked him kind of like, what is it about this kind of up and down? And he took responsibility for it, but he kind of alluded to the fact that sometimes he's trying harder than others. I'm paraphrasing, but and I've heard that from others. Julius Randle has said things like that, like just we didn't put in the effort tonight. And I think fans might be, kind of, well, they're just thinking, what do you mean? I know it's a long season, it's grueling, and sometimes you're back to backs. Yeah. But I mean, what have been your thoughts as you've heard kind of them talk about the effort piece?
Yeah, it's funny because in the locker room after these games, that's what everyone says. When this happens, it's Rudy saying we got to play with better effort, we got to be more focused. Julius says that. Dante is always very honest. Mike, who is now traded, was always one of the people that was like, we just gotta focus and play harder. And it's hard to argue with that when all of the players are saying they dropped these games because they're not locked in. You kind of got to take them for their word, which, I remember a couple months ago I asked Finch about this, and I was like, well, isn't it kind of nice that they are able to self-reflect and, they're taking accountability?
That was such a great spin, by the way. I love that you asked him that and framed it in that way.
and Finch goes, well, if they were really being self-reflective, they would change, which... I do think for a lot of these guys, it is just kind of, they know when the playoffs start, that's when kind of the actual games start to matter. And I think for a lot of these guys, just my vibe is that they're just waiting for the playoffs. And as long as they get in, I think they'll be happy. But for fans, that's frustrating because you're paying your hard-earned money to go watch them. That's
exactly right.
And you don't know if they're going to show up or not.
Yep. And that's that always, because, it's to take a family to go to games, any professional game, it can be super expensive, except the Lynx. Lynx games are way more affordable. But yeah.
You can also come say hi to me at Lynx games.
Yeah. Yes, so I know. You
if you want to do that.
Well. Yeah. So, well, I'm glad we have you on. I'm glad that we got eyes on what might be happening here. Really, really sad if indeed we are saying goodbye to Mike Conley Jr. Just can't imagine this team without him, but you've also seen, kind of what's been happening on the court as well, and just, running out of gas, as you would expect at that age, which is still young. But not in basketball terms, right?
I hope it's still young, because I'm only a year or two behind him.
Exactly. Whew, yeah, amazing talent and a good member of the community and all of those amazing things. So, Andrew, thanks for jumping on with us. We really appreciate it. And we shall see. We've got, tomorrow, Raptors, is that right? I think that's what I see.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Thursday will be the trade deadline, and then I'm sure we'll have more to talk about after that.
Let's do it. Oh, Raptors are 30-21, and Wolves are 31-20. So, right there.
The Wolves have not won a game in Toronto since 2004, I believe.
My goodness.
So this is one of those last big post Kevin Garnett monkeys to get off their backs.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate your time and jumping on here. And we had this breaking news that we could get to as well. We think it's happening, but all right. Thanks, Andrew. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Talk to you then.
Okay. Bye. All right. That is going to do it for us here on All Day Live. Thanks for being with us here today. And we will see you back here tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Another day. Sun's out. Maybe we can get outside today. That would be kind of nice. All right. Have a good day, everybody.